Did you sleep well?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. My wife is my boss during our presentations, and actually she is the health professional. She is a nurse, and she has been practicing as a nurse for many years since 1991. 1991. And she is also an educator and a health educator, and thus we team up together. And so her question is, why is it that we have it entitled as health threats of modern trends? Because I got many of you that you know obviously the answer, because what we are leading in our lives actually would threaten the way we maintain our health, our stamina, and our energy. So let me go over first on the things that are happening here in our society. Not necessarily happening at your homes, but probably you can relate. There is a rise on fast food eating. Do you agree?
Yes.
So as you can see here in just around us, that we just have a lot of fast food restaurants, and with their presence in our own communities, in the major cities and even in smaller cities, with their presence, they are temptations. Do you agree that they are very tempting? What could be the temptation for having this fast food, aside from what they serve? We are tempted to what?
Convenience.
Convenience, yes.
Right.
Convenience. Drive-through.
You don't have to cook it.
We don't have to cook. We don't have to prepare our own food. Those are great temptations in our modern society. In the Philippines, as I was a little kid growing up in a more or less farm area, before you eat, you have to toil. You have to go first to the garden, pick some vegetables, fruits at that, then you can eat. I remember when I was a little kid, for breakfast I would climb up the tree and then just eat there. So I didn't have to prepare my own food, right?
That's your kitchen.
That was my kitchen. And I imagine I grew up with my other siblings. I have two older brothers, and then I have an elder sister, and then me, and then I have two younger sisters. 6 of us children. And so I would go first, climb up the tree, and then I would eat there, and then I would bring some to my younger sisters for them to eat as well. So we didn't have to cook. But then we were also trained to cook our own food as well, at least for lunch. Filipinos are fond of rice, and that we were trained also to cook our own vegetables. But then the vegetables that we used to eat were just coming straight from the garden. But these days, people will just drive through, right? And these are very tempting because we don't have to prepare our own food. There are people who prepare, but of course, if we don't have money, we cannot. Thus, people would like to just work and work and work in their respective professions, and then they just have food from the fast foods. Aside from this, of course, the fast foods don't normally serve those that we classify as healthful foods. Do you agree? And what do we have there with the food that they serve? They are usually started with fat, high-fat sugar, and what else? Sodium and other things. And many of them are not even with nutrients, because even with French fries, for example, it's potatoes coming from potatoes, the normal potatoes that we have, but then before they are cooked, they are processed. They are soaked in water, and then what else? They put some preservatives and they freeze them. When it gets to us, the nutrients that are supposed to be there are already destroyed because of, maybe we could say, minimal processing. And then before they are served to us, they are deep fried in oil. And just the frying by itself is going to destroy the nutrients. And then when it gets to us, what we will have only will just be plain starches. Okay? And then with the oil that they put, this would actually add up to the fat that the body itself would make. And this is what is happening in our society. And then we mentioned about sugar. Sugar per se is not bad, because there are what we call natural sugars in their natural form. Even if we may say, yes, the sugar that we get from the sugar crystals, they are also natural sugars in some ways, but then they have been extracted from their natural form. You imagine sugar cane, for example, or sugar beets. So they have those sugar beets, they extract the sugar, and then they are extracted, they are taken out from their natural form. And if they are taken out from their natural form, when these sugars will get into the body, they would cause some problems with the proper functions of the body organs. I wonder who among you are working in health systems, health professionals. Are there some of you? Yes, very good. And you have seen a lot of people suffering from diabetes and so on and so forth. Of course, diabetes has a genetic component, meaning to say that we may inherit them from our parents. But yet, we know that there are trigger factors as well that would cause the sugar to rise up. And one of the things that we have found out is that these sugars are actually too much for the body. Because since they are concentrated, this concentrated form of sugar that we find in a lot of food products these days would hack our system. And so we will be looking into this. So these sugars are just too much for the body. They would cause belly fat. They would lead to insulin resistance. They would cause the rise of triglycerides in the bloodstream. These are neutral fats in the bloodstream. And then this would add up to the belly fat. Why? Because these neutral fats would tend to be deposited in the fat tissues in the body, especially in this area. Okay? And you may be thinking that they are sugars, how come they became fats? The body has the ability to convert them into neutral fats. If there is an excess sugar in the bloodstream, what will the body do? Those excess sugars will be converted into neutral fats. And where will these neutral fats go? They will not remain in the bloodstream, but most of them will be deposited in the adipose tissues underneath the skin. Some adipose tissues that you find around organs of the body, even the heart themselves. Even here, at this part there is a part we call it greater and lesser omentum. They are fat bodies that you find as protection for the internal organs. But if there would be excess of these neutral fats, they are deposited there. And they will be added to the belly fat that we have. And you see, there would also be, along with this increased LDL cholesterol, cancer cases that are related to high consumption of sugars, and of course coupled with high consumption of fats. And in other words, this would cause us to develop chronic lifestyle illnesses. And then our consumption of soda related to the consumption of sugar per se, and the products related to sugar. Soda consumption, I have seen just coming here to Arkansas, we had some passengers just having big bottles of soda, and they just kept drinking and drinking soda. And did you know that soda is at least 60% sugar? Others may lower it to 40%. But when I was still being trained in the academy, we had field trips to the bottling companies for Coca-Cola. We went there to the plant, and we have seen how they poured sacks and sacks of sugars in their processing machines. And we asked them, how much sugar do you put? And they said, we put at least 40% sugar, and then it may add up to 60% at times. It depends, they said. So sugars that were extracted from sugar cane or from sugar beets, they are just made into those types of sugars that are not healthy. So what they do is they refine it, they remove those other nutrients, and then what you have there would be just that sugar per se, concentrated and then put in products such as soda. And we have junk foods all around. Why are they called junk foods in the first place? They are junk. They are just meant to be put in the trash, right? Yes. And why do people get the junk foods? They taste good. They taste good. And so they appeal to the taste buds in such a way that, again, last night I mentioned about instant gratification. We like to be instantly gratified. And with those bliss tastes, as we call them, a bliss taste is a combination of fat, sugar, and sodium. So they combine them together, and some other spices, they combine them so that we have what we call bliss taste. And that's what they integrate in many of the junk foods so that you would be addicted to the junk foods. So they have addiction effects on the body. They would cause the brain to release those hormones that would give you satisfaction. And then the thing is, as we are partaking them, the level of satisfaction would be requiring higher amounts of these foods. So if you start giving yourself maybe just a taste of the junk food, then the following day or so, if you see the same junk food, then you will be eating not just one or two, but it will require much more. Because you are satisfied and there would be much more hormone for satisfaction to be released, and that it will require you to have more increased consumption of these junk foods. So you will then be, a person may then be put in a trap. So junk foods is part of our modern trends, and then we have fat everywhere. Vegetable oil consumption is increasing. Now others may say, even some, I have heard some nutritionists, dietitians who would say, yes, they are good oils. They are vegetable oils, they say. But if you are going to look at the truest sense of how we should use oils, how much oil should we be consuming? Any idea how much oil should we be consuming each day?
1/4 of an inch in a skillet, in a pan. 1/4 of an inch. I'll fry French fries.
Mm.
And it says put 1/4 of an inch in a pan, and then heat it up and put the French fries in. You don't need to get like a whole, like, if you fill it to the brim, that's too much oil. But I use canola oil, and when I fry my stuff and I take it out of the skillet and put it on my plate and let it set, it's still the same, the oil does not decrease. It's still the same amount of oil that I put in there. When I put my fries down, it's still that same amount of oil. So you maybe can tell me more about that. If it doesn't decrease, does that mean I'm using good oil?
Yes, so, okay, right. It's good to mention about that, because people may rationalize, these are good oils. Maybe they are good vegetable oils. But yet, the problem is heating the oil by itself and the amount of oil that we use. So for example, I would say that what the body would require in terms of oils that we integrate in the food would be about 1 to 2 teaspoons per day. Can you imagine that? May I repeat? 1 to 2 teaspoons per day.
That's not a lot of oil.
That's not a lot of oil, yes, but that is what the body would be able to take on a daily basis. Not a lot of oil, but we are using it for frying, for preparing the foods.
Does this include olive oil?
Yes, whatever type of oil. Olive oil, canola oil, cotton oil, or whatever oils that we use. Whatever oil. Oils are oils. They are all triglycerides. They are all neutral fats. And so they are extracted from their natural sources. Again, if they are extracted from their natural source, then they are concentrated in such a way that we take them only in smaller amounts. Do you remember the food pyramid? The food pyramid is just like a pyramid, and the oils are there not because they are superior in quality, but they are there in terms of the amount of oil that we need. They are just right at the tip of the food pyramid. It means that you have to consume them in negligible amounts. Okay, negligible amounts. Why? because our own bodies make our own fat. We make our own body fats. So there is what we call lipid synthesis or fat synthesis. The body is able to make use of that. Now the oils that we have to be consuming are those generally as what we call essential fatty acids. The oils that have the essential fatty acids. Because if we consume them, the body is able to make its own fat. Okay? And if it is a biochemistry class, I could show you how the body would make its own fat. Because the body knows exactly how much do we need. Yes, brother.
No,
Okay.
I'll take class.
All right, very good. Yes, you take my class. That's 1 semester class.
Oh my God.
1 semester, that means that we would be spending about 5 months talking about how the body makes its own lipids, and then what are the products that would come from there. That includes cholesterol, phospholipids, and other forms of fats, where the body would make use of them. And so we trace that if you eat the essential fatty acids, and then where will it go? Where will it be processed by the cells? And that's a 1 semester course. And please come and sit in my class. All right, for 1 semester, that's 5 months. Okay? Now, but what I'm saying is the body needs to have a limit in our consumption. Now, we also have the saturated fats. The word saturated is just a term that we use when the type of fat that we eat from them would be too condensed. They are too condensed. They are, the fats are chains and chains of these segments, of the units that make them. And they are just so condensed in such a way that when you eat them, the body could hardly metabolize them. The body can hardly make use of them. And that when they could hardly be used, in most cases they would just be deposited somewhere else in the body. And so much of them will be deposited on the walls of the arteries, they would be deposited anywhere else. Some of them may be deposited in the liver and around organs. And what will you do with those excess fats that are deposited there? The body cannot make use of them. They would just be there, and they could hack the functions of the organs of the body. And we will be talking much more about that. I've taken this picture from a local restaurant in Texas, and as you can see that many of these foods are floating in oil, in fat.
Georgia Brown?
Mm-hmm.
Is that restaurant right there that with them pictures of, is that Sweet Georgia Brown in East Dallas?
I got it from a local restaurant in McAllen, in Texas. Yes. And they are just floating in fat. You can see there, even just mere spaghetti.
Collard greens.
Yes, I don't see any colored grease there.
Yeah, but if that's Sweet Georgia Brown, they got everything.
Yes. Yeah. And this is a big temptation as well. You go to restaurants where they tag it as all-you-can-eat restaurants. You sit there for 30 minutes to 1 hour, and then others may sit there for more than 1 hour. Just eating and going back and forth to where the food is. Eat all you can anyway, you are paying it only for about $7. Did they increase it to maybe $13?
Try $15 now.
$15 now, okay. Yes, they have increased. But $15 you can eat a lot within a good 1 hour or two. And so just eat and eat and eat. And again, most of the foods that you find there are not even healthy. And we have this sedentary lifestyle. Sedentary lifestyle. We eat, there is too much input, yet we have less of the output, right? Our output would be for us to make use of those food energy that we have taken, but yet we are not using them. There are people who go to the gym, yes, but they are paying the gym in order to be healthy. Why not make use of your own resources at home? Just doing some sit-ups, push-ups, and then just stationary jogging, doing them outdoors. That would be a better way to exercise rather than going to the indoor gyms. Okay? And we have not been doing well in our exercise and fitness activities. Yes, sister?
What if he has stroke? What if he has stroke?
What if you've had a stroke?
What if you have?
What if you had a stroke?
Yes.
Okay. There are special needs of each individual. All right? For example, you are a stroke survivor. You cannot do so much immediately after you had that incident. So there are programs that we design. There are special programs that we design individually. That's why among our clients, we have our programs especially designed for them. Okay, so if whatever is your condition, we design the program, the fitness exercises programs for you. Even in our meal planning, we design them specifically for your condition. So there are exercises from mild exercises to the medium and then to those more vigorous exercises. But we have to see to it that you are building up from there. One small steps at a time. Okay. So we are here to design individually, not one size fits all program, but it's a program that would be designed according to your health goals. Thank you for asking that. All right, and we have seen parties, social gatherings. In our place alone, there is a church, we tag it as party church. Party church. How do you classify your church? Is it a party church? Or is it a church that goes out to the community and serve the community? I hope we are that. That we are there to exercise our muscles, to just walk to the community, and then we give them tracts, we give them what we believe, and we share what we believe. Instead of having parties, especially that parties are done in the evenings, at night, when you eat a lot and then go to bed full. And that's too bad for health. You will not be able to sleep well, your triglyceride levels will go up, and it will cause some problems, and we will be specifying all these when we will get to the next topics. And of course, you have to say no. No to parties, especially night parties. You can go only to parties when they are served during lunchtime, or maybe maybe early afternoon, when you have your body to digest the food for at least 2 hours before you go to bed. What will you do with those excess food that you have eaten during the night while in fact you are going to sleep and then take some rest? The body can actually don't rest well if you have eaten so much. You don't have any restful sleep. If you have fed yourself too much and that you go to sleep, you cannot have a restful sleep. And the dopamine, endorphins, the serotonin that are supposed to be restorative hormones to restore back your body in order to be ready to do your work during the day, you will not be able to get those benefits of deep sleep if you fill yourself too much at night. So let's say no to parties. If you plan activities for the church that may entail some eating, do it early during the day, not at night. All right, so these are some chronic lifestyle diseases that we know would be developing if we do those modern trends. Obesity, coronary artery disease, hypertension, diabetes, development of some cancers, arthritis, liver disease, kidney disease, metabolic syndrome, and so on and so forth. So we have all those. I don't know if my wife has some more questions for me to answer.
Not now.
All right.
I think you have gone over it already.
Okay. Now, here, I mentioned to you about the risk factors related to nutrition, which we will also be looking into later on. Refined grains, red and processed meats, refined sugar, sodium and salt, preservatives, we mentioned those. And then we have processed foods and food additives that would hack our system. People are smoking and drinking, sedentary lifestyle. These are risk factors for cancer. And that our bodies may succumb to these illnesses. While we do all those, people may have problems with weakening their immune system. Respiratory tract infections, cancer, and so on and so forth. How many of you did have any symptoms of COVID during the pandemic? All right, so I could see several of you. You showed some symptoms, and thanks God, you are still alive. We are still alive in spite of the fact that we were exposed to the virus. Yes, but the body is able to recover. One time I remember when we were there, I'm a consultant with Lifetree Natural Wellness in Idaho. I remember bringing in patients, 3 of them. They were there. 3 of them came in that night. And many of us, faculty and staff in the center, we stay up, and then the patients would just go there. But since there were no other rooms, so we had to admit them at the upper rooms. And so we were exposed. They were at the height of COVID-19. They were not doing well. In fact, they were already in an advanced stage of COVID. And thus we admitted them. In 3 days they got well, and no one of us got the COVID. No one of us among faculty and staff. And thanks God. Why? Because our immune system is good enough to take the challenges of the virus.
Okay, as we can see, it says there, as the immune system is compromised, the body can succumb to certain infections and diseases. Now, would you mind explaining, because I see that sugar itself is one big culprit. Would you mind explaining how sugar will compromise our immune system?
All right, so yes, sugar may compromise our immune system. So let's go here. Oh. Let me see. Just a minute. May I just... Yes, so I mentioned to you that sugar that we extract from the natural sources are just so concentrated that if we consume them at large amounts, they could hijack our immune system. And did you know that by taking sugars, they would knock out a lot of white blood cells? And we are familiar that the white blood cells are actually soldiers of the body. They are the ones that would guard the body from getting sick, because they are the ones that would engulf those invaders of the body, such as bacteria, viruses. We mentioned the viruses. They are the ones that are supposed to engulf those invaders of the body. But then if you eat sugars and the products with sugars, they would die, literally. They die. They would be literally killed in just a few seconds to few minutes. If the sugar would get into the bloodstream and the white blood cells are there, they would be killed, literally. So, as you can see here, they come in different forms. And then we have seen that shelves were emptied of flour, soda, sugar, canned goods, toilet papers, and others during the pandemic. And people just wanted to grab all those in order to guarantee that they have something to eat and to use during the pandemic. And many of them resorted to a lot of baking and preparing all these things for themselves during the pandemic. And instead of helping the body to strengthen its immune system, they tended to hijack the body with consuming a lot of sugars, pastries, a lot of these different starchy foods. And so they didn't know what troubles were they getting into with higher consumption of sugars. So here are 5 major ways how refined sugars could be a sure source of sickness. I put there the word sure, because even at a particular amount, even you say, I have consumed only this much, but this could surely hijack your immune system. The first thing is that the sugars have no fiber. They don't contain the fibers. They don't contain so much of the minerals, vitamins, and so on. Thus, if we consume them at large amounts, then we are causing the body to make use of the resources that it already has. So, for example, it makes use of other resources, minerals and some vitamins, in order to metabolize the sugar. So that you would end up having mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiency, especially the B vitamins, because with high sugars, it has to make use of some B vitamins and some minerals in order for the body to make use of it. Thus, one big thing that the sugar will do as we consume them in high amounts would be to cause the body to have mineral deficiencies, including deficiencies of calcium, sodium, potassium, and magnesium. These are key minerals that the body would need. Even iron. And the B vitamins as well would go down. In fact, you need to to bring in vitamins on a daily basis, particularly the B vitamins and vitamin C. Why? Because they are water soluble and they need to be there on a daily basis. And then our pancreas would overreact. The overreaction of pancreas would mean that it would send off a lot, it would release a lot of insulin in order to metabolize the sugar, the excess sugar that we have taken. And thus, if it overreacts, it would get too busy and busy until it would be bogged. It would bog down, and that if it bogs down, it will no longer be able to produce the needed insulin. So you would end up developing problems with sugar metabolism. And then the third one is that when sugar is consumed, the good bacteria, where do we find the good bacteria? In the gut, especially in the large intestines. You have there is a manufacture of B12, vitamin B12. These good bacteria are the ones that would manufacture them. But yet, when we consume a lot of sugars, these good bacteria will die, especially when we integrate them with our consumption of cakes, pastries, consumption of soda, as we mentioned. This would literally kill those good bacteria. And where else will you get vitamin B12? There will no longer be production of B12 vitamin. And what is important with the B12 is that when you have B12, the body will not suffer from a form of anemia. Okay? There is one form of anemia that the body may develop if you run out of B12 vitamins. Okay? And that it will also cause the immune system to go down, because so much that the good bacteria will help the body develop its immune system, so that you will end up having problems with your immune system, so you can easily get sick. Another thing is that when your B complex vitamin would decline, the glutamic acid is not processed and it would cause sleepiness. That means that your focus, your alertness will be compromised as well with high consumption of sugar. Have you ever noticed yourself when after eating these foods, it started with sugar, you become sleepy? You cannot focus. Your mental alertness is no longer there if you consume high amounts of sugar, because you just want to sleep. Yes, brother.
I take a lot of honey. Is that the same thing? Or?
It's the same thing because it's also sugar.
Yeah.
Yes. You may think that honey is good, but yes, it is good. The thing is, we need to consume it in small amounts, just like how you consume other types of sugars. Yes, thank you for asking that.
Not the sugar. I used to be a sugar addict, but I don't eat it. I just eat it on rice, beans, greens, anything I put sugar on to eat. My dad told me, boy, you eat a lot of sugar. He told me it's not healthy for you. So I throw away. I can buy a pound of sugar, throw it away. In the oil, the olive oil, is that oil that you can fry foods with? And if it is, does it change the taste of the food compared to like another canola oil?
Yes. If you use oil, again, you use oil sparingly.
Olive oil.
Olive oil, whatever type of oil, they are all oils.
Oh, so even olive oil isn't healthy for you.
Olive oil you cannot fry things with because it has.
Yes, they are not supposed to be subject to heat Why? Because there is what we call there is what we call boiling point.
Heat index.
Yes. The boiling point for oil is much lower, which means that even with a small amount of oil of heat that you apply on oil, it will totally destroy it, and there would be formation of carbon. And carbon is one of the culprits why people may get sick and develop cancer.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes. And even with sugars, if you use sugar, you use sugar, any type of sugar, especially when they are concentrated, you have to use them in small amounts. We call them sparingly. And that your memory function, your problem solving will be affected with high consumption of sugar. Again, you cannot concentrate, you cannot focus, because you feel sleepy when you consume a lot of sugars. And then this would also increase our susceptibility to develop sickness, especially with women who are fond of sugars and sugar products. They may develop pancreatic disease, skin disease, urinary tract infections, breast, uterus and breast cancers. They may be very susceptible to developing all this. But again, not only women, but any one of us can develop. All right, and of course, as we mentioned, that it will dump off our immune system. It will literally kill the white blood cells, the immune cells. And it could slow down blood circulation and lymphatic circulation as well, how the body will distribute the nutrients and gases in the body, and the nutrients, they are not going to be distributed fairly well because the sugars, high sugars, would cause the blood viscosity, and it will slow down the distribution process. All right, and as the immune system is compromised, then you can suffer from all this. So the next time you go to the grocery, don't ever be tempted to pick any of those sugars. Don't put them in your list. It's better for you to have sugars in their natural form. The fruits. And in our meal planning, I will teach you how to plan for your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes, brother.
Some of the sugar substitutes act the same way as the sugars do, and maybe just as harmful for you?
Yes. Yeah, whatever type of sugar.
Blender?
The fruits, those sugar substitutes are even worse than sugar per se. Yes, they are even worse. And there are some studies, even now, there are scientists who are interested on knowing what are the grave effects of sugar substitutes. You may see no sugar added in the products, but yet they use sugar substitutes, which would hijack the health even much more than we may expect. So for those who may be trying to control their sugar intake, don't take those sugar substitutes except if they are coming from their natural sources. What are those natural sources? Stevia. Honey, yes.
Cane sugar.
Cane sugar, directly from cane sugar. Yes, those are better alternatives, but again, the amount that we have to consume should be considered. All right, now I will open the floor for a few questions or things that you would like to contribute in our discussion. Yes, sister.
Okay. You showed the buffet, and I love buffets sometimes. And in case I travel, I go out, and so there's no other option, so I go to buffet. But I choose the best food in the buffet, like rice, of course, and then green beans, and then zucchini, and I just put crumbs of chicken from chicken crumbs, and then just to have some crunchy thing. Are there better options you will find in the buffet?
Yes. Yeah, there are better options, much better than those that are studded with a lot of oils. But then we also have to be careful with this chicken crumbles that you put there. That would make the healthy one unhealthy. That's what we call compromises. Don't ever compromise if possible. Because if you do compromise, that compromise that you make at that instance will cost you anything. Because again, some of them may be addictive. The thing is, if you prepare the chicken with oil again, if you have burned oils, burned fats, they become even worse than their condition, their original condition. Yes, brother. Yes.
Okay. What do you think about the problems with genetically modified foods? Of all the apples that I've tasted recently, they don't take one apple that I'm used to taste the same. They all taste different. They taste almost like the flavors have been pulled out of them. They're just more like, they're just not as flavorful as they used to be. And that's just what I've noticed. What do you think about that?
Yes, you have a very keen observation. Because even for me, I have the same observation that those foods that we used to have when we were small kids, they no longer taste the same. If I think of even the vegetables that we used to eat way back in the Philippines, they have something to do with how they modify these vegetables and fruits now. I'm a geneticist by profession, and so I know the process on how they do it on a hybrid program. They do hybridization a lot, and they do molecular hybridization where I am at. That's my area of specialty. Doing some manipulations in the lab at the molecular level. So we do get this gene and then transfer it to another organism and so on. So you will have a genetically modified organism. Now, professionally, we do it carefully with some goals in mind. So for example, when they invited me in Israel to do some genetic manipulation, we wanted to bring in a gene that would cause the plant to tolerate salt water. Because in the Negev Desert, we were invited to do some research in the Negev Desert at the southern tip of Israel, near Eilat, the Red Sea as we know. So they are able to drill water from deep down the Negev Desert. And what they get is brackish water, a combination of salt and fresh water. And so they were trying to raise some plants, even rice and other vegetables. But they cannot raise them, they cannot produce them unless we get that gene from the mangrove, from the coastal areas. And then we get the gene from those plants that are thriving in the coastal areas, and then get that gene. It's not an easy task, Just describing it may be an easy one, but it's a long process that it will take a lot of patience and research and things like that. So we get that gene, and then integrate this to these crops, and then we see that these genes are stable, that they could carry it out through the generations. And that's one thing good about genetic manipulation. We are able to bring in good genes and good character traits for the plants or for that organism, we call it host organism, that will eventually become a GMO. Now, these are good ways to use the technology, the genetic recombinant technology as we call it. These are good ways to improve, but that people have gone beyond. That even the flavors of the food, the integrity of the products are already compromised. And in some cases, they have caused some allergic reactions on individuals that would consume this GMO. So it's another topic to elaborate. But I could see several hands. Yes, my brother there.
I'm a borderline diabetic, and I eat some rice, good for you. Eat egg good for you. Eat rice, it turns into starch.
Oh, the
Rice
rice
turns
turned
into
to
starch.
sugar.
Not rice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Rice is basically a starchy carbohydrate. Okay. If you talk of carbohydrates, it's a general term which refers to different types. Starches are the most complex ones, and then there are other forms of carbohydrates. Starchy carbohydrates have primarily one type of sugar, and they have what we call glucose. All right. Now, in starches, these glucose are just basically joined together by chemical bonds. We call this as glycosidic bonds. They are all joined together. They are joined together, and in most instances, they are so complex that when you eat them, those bonds, those chemical bonds, are broken. Okay, through what we call the process of enzymatic digestion. So they are broken. They are broken into their simple units called glucose, and that if they become simple sugars, and we consume them at large amounts. When they get to the bloodstream, they would cause the sugar to shoot up. Okay, so that if you are diabetic, you have to do away with starchy carbohydrates such as rice and some other grains, especially if the fibers are already gone. Even with potatoes, they are starchy carbohydrates as well. So do away with so much of these starchy carbohydrates. Instead, you use vegetables and even some fruits, especially fruits that have low glycemic index, and we'll be explaining that later on. Those with low glycemic index are the fruits good for diabetics. But yet, I would like to warn you that you cannot consume fruits at night. Why? Why can't you consume fruits at night? Because pancreatic activity is very low, supposed to be low, meaning to say that the pancreas should not be releasing insulin at the time. Why? Because at the time, the body is preparing to go to sleep. And if pancreatic activity is low, it means that the insulin is not released at high amounts. Instead, it will cause the pineal gland, the gland that you find just at the back of the brain, that would then produce melatonin. The pineal gland cannot produce melatonin when the pancreatic activity is still high. It means that it cannot produce the sleep hormone. The pineal gland cannot produce sleep hormones unless insulin is low, unless sugar is low, and unless pancreatic activity is low. All right, so don't eat the fruits at night. They may be simple foods, but yet you eat them much more for breakfast. Yes, may I have our sister there? I'll go back to you, and then our brother here, doctor. Yes.
Is boiled chicken bad for you or baked fish?
Baked fish better than chicken?
Is it bad for you to
Either or.
What is it?
Either or.
Either or. Yeah, are they good for you or bad for you? You know, God gave us all these foods. Chicken, beef, fish, they were given for us as transition food after the Noah's flood. Transition food. Why is it that they are called transition food? Or food for the meantime?
I think because when Noah had the flood and put them in the ark, they were no longer off the livestock of the land, and everything was watered and refreshed, remade over. So they had to come back in and restart a whole new generation of supplying themselves after they opened the ark, the food and the land, and that when the water went away, so they can live and have babies and multiply in the land. That's why they call it because they had to restart.
All right. Yes. That's an excellent answer. You know, transition food in a sense that if you don't have the vegetables and the fruits, you can eat them. But if you have the vegetables and fruits for your food, then don't eat those.
Why not?
Why not? Why not?
Vegetables and fruit, don't eat them?
Yeah, don't eat them. Because they are supposed to, you are supposed to eat first the fruits and the vegetables in their proper combination. But there are people who are not just the fruits and vegetables because they still integrate those meat and meat products, including fish. If you are in that condition, your goal there is to get out from the transition food. Your goal, that's your goal. But there are people who cannot do it abruptly. I truly understand that. So if they are transitioning, which means that you can just integrate them for now, and then endeavor to put more vegetables and fruits in your diet, and then endeavor to lessen and lessen gradually those foods that you have been used to. Okay? And there is a program, don't worry, there is a program that we do. Because we cannot have people, we cannot force people where they are not at yet. Okay? But that is your goal. All right, brother, I'll go back to you. Let's go to our brother, doctor, and you please.
So, they say that you should eat your fruit before your meal because the fibers in the fruit increases the absorption of sugars when you have your main meal.
Right.
And for the other brother who's diabetic, if he wants to eat rice, he should eat brown rice that is not polished.
Not polished.
And
Very
also,
good.
they can substitute quinoa for rice, which is an excellent grain that also acts like rice that you can get a lot of nutrition out of, a lot of protein and stuff. And then
Very
these
good
days
point.
they're selling low glycemic index rices. So you should look for those if you're really, really into rice.
Very good point. Thank you, doctor, for mentioning that. Because you know, in order for you to have sugar control, and we will be looking into that as well, in order for you to have good sugar control, meaning to say the level of sugar in your bloodstream is going to be controlled, maintain normal glucose level, you see to it that you integrate fibers in your food. Okay, fibers. Because at that time, these fibers will still cause the sugar to bind to them before they are going to be absorbed. They would get into the bloodstream, and there are those that are soluble fibers, as we call them. These soluble fibers may get into the bloodstream, and some of this glucose may still bind to them, so that the glucose will not shoot up. And yes, the doctor mentioned here that there are some rice that have low glycemic index. Now, if you are fond of rice, you can integrate quinoa. There it may be, you can look for a right combination of quinoa
That's right.
and rice.
That's right.
So you may have 50-50, 50% quinoa and 50% rice, or you can start with 20-80. It depends where you want to start, because we are here to help you. We know where you are, you need. That's why you communicate to your healthcare professionals what are your health goals, and that we will be learning how your conditions are, and we work on your conditions. Yes.
I think we're having a great discussion. I hate to cut it. So if you have questions, you may just write it down and give it to me, and we will address it at 2 p.m. this afternoon. And we are happy to be able to share with you today. So for all your questions, write it down, give it to me, and we will address it this afternoon for the sake of time. And we will give now the time to Sister.